All right, everyone, welcome to the Tune In Up podcast. We are the Southern Hemisphere's only and best dedicated Newcastle United podcast. And today we have the start of the summer transfer window. It's going to be 83 days of absolute bedlam for us Newcastle fans. If we thought January was mad, waiting to see what this one's got for us. And with me, I've got Scott down in Brisbane. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right.
Perfect. And Bobby, we've got you down in Ballarat. What was that, mate?
Still a bit jet lagged.
Oh, yeah, you've been gallivanting around Europe, haven't you? Well,
Yeah.
mainly UK, St James's Park. And this lucky sod was at the Arsenal game. Which was absolutely superb.
That was very good.
And Bobby, yourself?
Good, Craig. Yeah, going well and looking forward to the transfer period, this transfer window. So very excited to what we can do.
It should be an interesting one, that's for sure. What we're going to cover off today basically is the outs and the ins of the transfer window, talk about potentials and the one permanent signing we have already made. But just to crack things off straight away, we're going to talk about the transfers going out. And first of all, Isaac Hayden. He's gone to Norwich on loan with an option for a permanent transfer depending on, I think it's results or promotion, that sort of thing. I don't think it's been divulged. What do you think of the transfer for Isaac Hayden there, Mark?
Oh, look, I think his time was definitely up at the club. I don't think anyone's going to sort of begrudge him a move. I think it was time for him to move on. But, you know, he goes and I think if you look at social media, I think the well wishes that he's had of pretty much unanimous Newcastle fans across the board kind of sums up what he's done. He's given his all for the club. He's done everything he can, despite he's wanted to be away. He's made it clear that he wanted to move at one point to be closer to his family down south, but he didn't get that. But he never sulked. He never threw his toys out the pram. He worked his ass off for the club every time he pulled on that shirt. So, you know, he goes with my greatest thanks for all that he did to keep the club where it is. And I think, you know, all the best to him for his time at Norwich. I think Norwich have actually got themselves a cracking player for them. I think he'll do well for them. And it's just one of those things where we've probably outgrown each other as players and club, and you know, he goes on to new pastures for a new challenge.
Completely agree with that one. Bobby, do you think it's a bit of a surprise he hasn't went to a Premier League club or a newly promoted Premier League club?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a very good player. I think he's a level above the championships. I think Norwich, as Mark said, they've got a good one. Not only in player though, but in character as well. He was one of my favourites, and as Mark said, just goes with our absolute blessing and good wishes. And but yeah, I was surprised it's not to another Premier League club. Maybe Norwich is probably the closest club to where he wanted to be. I don't know the reason for it, but just wish him absolute best, and hope to see him back in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, he's definitely going to improve Norwich's squad, I think. He's a quality player, and I think he goes with everybody's respect. He made, 171 appearances and scored 7 goals for us. And I think we bought him as part of that promotional team with Rafa. He came from the Arsenal setup. I think his most memorable goal was probably got to be that winner against Chelsea in the 92nd, 93rd minute, I think it was. That was absolutely cracking. I think he scuffed his head up, we don't care winning, got with the 3 points. That was probably a truly memorable part of that game, but cracking play. He will be missed on Tyneside, but I'd imagine he'll be up when Norwich do get promotion, probably again. A bit of a yo-yo club, those. So, it'd be nice to see what
looking forward to seeing him throw some massive tackles in against Sunderland.
Oh God, yes, in League One, in the Championship. That's going to be absolutely brutal. That the ovation he's going to get at the Stadium of Shite. Looking forward to that one. That should be cracking. And another player that's staying with the Northeast is Dwight Gayle, maybe off to Borough. Do we think Dwight Gale's time in the Championship is been and gone, or do you think he's still got it, Bobby?
Oh, I think he can play a role in the Championship for sure. I think I don't think he's quite a Premier League striker, but I think he'll knock goals in the Championship, especially for a team like Borough, who I think are a pretty good team, and with Wilder, who's a very good manager. I think it's a cracking signing for them. If he goes there, I think he'll put the goals in. So he's a real fox in the box, isn't he? He's a real good finisher, clinical, and in the championship he sort of gets those chances a bit better, a bit easier than he does in the Premier League. So another one, again, no ill feeling for him leaving, and wish him all the best. And I think very solid contributor for us.
Your thoughts on that one, Mark?
Oh, look, I think he's always been one of those players that has been too good for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League. It's a shame. So I think he probably should have moved on a couple of seasons ago, to be honest. I don't think he was ever going to do the job for us that we needed consistently enough in the Premier League. But he was crucial for our last promotion bid. He scored goals for fun. Had a few injuries again. It's like another almost Callum Wilson situation where he's going to score goals when he plays, but he's always got that little niggling injury in the background. But cracking signing for Borough. If he does go there and it's all confirmed, that's going to give them some pretty much some much needed firepower up front, and I think that's going to give them a really good chance at going for that promotion spot.
Yeah, it'd be another one to see if he can get a few past Sunderland in the Championship and the Weirties derby down there. That'd be a cracking match. Be first North East derby in God knows how many years. So that'd be a decent one to keep an eye out when the fixtures comes out.
Would love to see him score a hat trick in that game. That would just be very, very good.
That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? If he runs around doing like a Shearer celebration or something like that as well, that would just be that'd be superb. And one other potential out, this news broke just a few hours ago or something. Looks as though Freddie Woodman may be on his way to Preston. No mention of what the deal consists of, whether it's a loan, permanent transfer, what fee, if anything, is involved. But I think that's a smart move for Freddie Woodman. He needs to go to a place where he's going to get first-team football. Your thoughts on that one, Mark?
Yeah, at his age, he needs first-team football. He needs games. He's clearly not going to get them here, which is a shame because he did have loads of promise. As you said, there's no word whether or not it's a loan deal or a permanent signing. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, whether or not it is just his time's come and he needs to move on. But he came through the academy and he's always had sort of loads of promise behind him. And it was always that, well, as soon as we can, we'll get him into the first team and he'll be our keeper for the future. But I remember us saying that about Fraser Forster as well. And, it just doesn't ever seem to happen with our young kids. And, for me, with the new transfer policy that the club seems to be going down, I do hope that is a thing of the past and we can start to bring these players through. But yeah, again, he's one that's going to benefit from some good game time at a lower league, I think. All the best to him. Hope he does well. And
your thoughts on that one, Bobby?
Yeah, I think if it's a loan, it'll be a bit weird because he's only got 1 year to run in his contract. So he might have to be re-signed again for a longer term if that's what they're considering to loan him out for this season. And maybe he's in Eddie's thoughts that maybe down the track, because I think, what is he, 25? Which is still kind of young for a keeper. They sort of peak at 28 and then they continue on into their 30s. So maybe there is a future for him. They've seen because he was an England under 21 keeper and had really big raps on him as well. So who knows? But I think the move in itself is a very good one. I think going to a club like Preston in that level for him to play every week is what he needs. The loan move to Bournemouth didn't work out for him. He didn't get game time. So I think going to Preston, being their number one, that's very good.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how his career takes off now. Hopefully it just goes skywards for him, because like we said, he had all the promise and the potential in the world, but it just fizzled out due to inconsistencies, or he just wasn't seen as that number one keeper that we all thought he would have been, which again is a bit of a shame. It's nice to see players coming through the academy and making it big. I think the last 10 years or so, how many players have come through the academy and had a solid impact on the first team. You're looking at who is going to be probably the Longstaff brothers, or maybe even just Sean on that side of things, and Paul Dummett. I think that's pretty much it, isn't it? There's not many that have made an impact.
Goes back to Stevie Taylor for the next one almost.
Stevie Taylor,
Andy Carroll.
Andy Carroll, yeah, I totally forgot about Andy Carroll and his ponytail. Yeah, but this is the one thing that Dan Ashworth hopefully will step in and make a change. It's obviously not going to be overnight. It's going to be a long process. And as he mentioned in his interview, he's come to the monster that has been asleep at the wheel effectively. Hopefully, he can reignite that monster. But that's it all for the transfers out. We're now going to get onto the exciting stuff, which is the transfers in. Now, this is obviously the summer transfer window. It opened literally hours before we've started doing this recording. And we've already got one signing, and that signing is Matt Target, as you can see on the screen there. Now, Matt, as everyone will know, he was on loan from us at Aston Villa from the winter transfer window in January onwards. And he had a cracking second half of the season with us, never really put a foot wrong. But there was a lot of people suggesting that we weren't actually going to sign him, and there was talks of us getting Lodi from Atletico Madrid. But he's been signed. He got announced just a few days ago, and I think 99% of the fan base would be over the moon with his signature. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that, Bobby.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why. I thought it was the most simple transfer in the history towards the end of the season, but the rumours started spreading that no, it wasn't what we're looking at, and we were going for a different path, down a different path. So, which I think I mentioned on one of the pods, I just can't understand because he's a 7 out of 10, 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week. He does, he's so good with ASM in helping down that side of the park, and he's integrated into the squad. The players seem to love him. The fans love him. So I thought it was just a 15 million. It's a snip, isn't it? So, wrapped to have him. I think he's a good signing, and good start to the transfer period for us.
It really is. And touching on that fee of 15 million, it's a bit of a bargain when you think about it, because how many other English left backs are you going to get that plays consistently as he is? That unfortunately isn't in the England squad. I know that's something he aspires towards, but 15 million, you're not going to get much better than him for that price. Would you agree on the mark?
No, definitely. It was I think it was actually 13 million we signed him for, because we'd paid like a certain amount of the loan fees or whatever they get. Yeah. So 15 million total, including the loan fee from last season. I think that's an absolute steal, to be honest, given how consistent he's been. But you look at him and he's just slotted so seamlessly into that squad since he's joined. He's probably had one bad game, and that was against Spurs. But he wasn't exactly the only one in that game. I don't think anyone played well in that particular effort. But yeah, he seems happy. I think all the players around him seem happy. I did actually see his interview, which was pretty eye-opening, that he was keen to join. And apparently Eddie Howe went to see him after the Burnley game and actually said, no, I want to sign you. So then it all went quiet. And obviously he's probably seen all these rumours and going, what's happening? But yeah, no, he seems to have settled in nicely. I think there was a little bit of talk that he was going to end up down on the south coast, closer to family or whatever. But he seems more than happy to have sealed that move on a permanent basis, and can't wait for the new season with him.
And didn't his partner sort of put an Instagram post up, sort of leading to the fact that they were going? So it was really weird that little period of after the season that we thought we'd lost him, and then all of a sudden it just reignited. So I'm not too sure what happened there. I don't know if they did want Lodi first, and then the wages and the fee was just too much, and then we've gone back to the well. But I'm glad to have him. I think he's a very good player.
He has come under a little bit of criticism for his attacking contribution during the game. I know Lee's been quite vocal of this on the pod once or twice, but as a defender, that's his main job, is to stop the goal from going in rather than creating or assisting. And I think at 26, he's still technically learning his game. And hopefully under Eddie, he can develop his craft that little bit more and, push on and get that England call-up that he so wants. And there's definitely a possibility he keeps playing the consistent football he has been since January. And do you think there's a chance he could make it into the England squad? Question to both of you.
I think, knowing Southgate, no. I don't think Southgate really will give anyone credit unless he's absolutely forced to by the FA, pretty much. It seems very much like it's the usual thing with the England squad of it's not how you're playing, it's who you're playing for. I think we've kind of been lucky to get Trippier to get into the England squad because he was already pretty much a mainstay in that squad. So dropping him after being such an influential player was going to look a little bit suspect. But, you know, tinfoil hats away. If he comes out and starts the season the way he finished it and is playing well and we're keeping clean sheets, I don't see many other English left backs in the league that are going to sort of push him for a place. So there's no reason why he couldn't. And I actually genuinely hope he does, because it means that he's playing really well for us and he's given no choice to Southgate but to pick him.
Your thoughts on that, Bobby?
Yeah, you can never say never. And, you know, Trippier was playing left back for England the other night. So,
yeah,
you know, there could be a possibility. I don't know. Obviously not English, so I don't follow the England national team that closely like you lads would. But I don't know who is the left backs or the you know in front of him. But if he plays well and starts well, then who knows? I think he's, as I said, he's at 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week. So that consistency might get him in the eyes when they come to watch Trippier play. So yeah, who knows?
It'd be nice to see more Newcastle players represent the national squad, that's for sure. It's been a long time. So going to move on to the next one now. Now, this next player, he's been, again, a long-term target of ours since January, and that is Hugo Ekiti, a man famous for his name spelling the same backwards or forwards. Good man, 19 years old, French wonder kid apparently, but he's got hamstrings made out of Play-Doh. As we all found out overnight when I think after 8 minutes, he limped off, pulling his right hamstring, which apparently is the same one he pulled earlier on in the season, which caused him to miss 10 games on that one. We actually have footage of him here clutching his right hamstring. He's got that blue medical tape, which obviously shows that there was some tightness around that hamstring before the game started, that he and the medical staff were aware of this. What do you make of that, Mark? And what do you make of his potential transfer to us?
I think I spoke off air. I've seen highlight videos on YouTube of him, and there's this ongoing theme where he keeps getting the strapping on his leg. Whether or not that's a ongoing issue and it's been tight all season and he's pushed through it and it's kind of finally given out and then he's coming back but trying to push himself too hard too soon or something. I don't know, but you know, he finished the season off, played the first game for France under 21s, and then was it under 21s or under 19s?
Under 23s, I think it is.
Was it under 23s? Was it?
Something like that.
But then, you know, if he's pulled up, it's like it's a meaningless game. It's like it's effectively friendlies, isn't it? It's like he's in a tournament, but you know, let's be fair. It's like, don't risk a player that's clearly got hamstring problems, who's just come back from injury and he's got tightness in his hamstrings, and throw him in. I just think that was bad management of a player, and for a young player to have that much mismanagement, I think is actually really an indictment on how badly that coaching staff has managed him. And if I was his agent and I was his club trying to sell him, I'd be pretty furious right about now. I think he's tipped. He looks a very sort of a diamond in the rough, I guess you would say. He looks like a very classy player, but is still very raw. Looks like he's got an eye for goal. He's got some skills. I think he's definitely one that we were trying to sign for the future. At least we hope so. My worry about getting somebody who is now down with his second hamstring and the same hamstring within, you know, the last 5 months or whatever, is this going to be a reoccurring injury that is just going to haunt him for the rest of his career, and we're just going to constantly get him breaking down. You know, we get him back fit, he plays a handful of games, suddenly goes out injured. We've seen it before with, like, you know, like Aaron Ramsey constantly injured. We've seen like lots of players who have this constant injury proneness, and it's like, you know, if you're buying somebody as a prospective future player, you're buying that potential. You know, you want to make sure you can maximize that potential. You want to train them. You want to make sure that they develop. You want to make sure that they progress properly. And if he's going to be injured all the time, you know, is he going to get that development right? And that to me is the big question mark over him right now. Is, you know, we've seen it with Harris Vukic at Newcastle already, where absolutely cracking player, bags of skill, huge potential, but never ended up fulfilling that because he was always injured. And that injuries and time after time, constant injuries were just sort of really hindering his development as a player to get to where he needed to be. And you know, if you're buying him for 5 to 10 million, you kind of think, well, okay, yeah, that's a gamble worth taking. If you're paying 30, 35 million for a player, you want to make sure that you're sort of starting off with a clean slate. And that to me is kind of the worry is, you know, are we kind of going in hoping that we're going to get this cracking player that suddenly his injuries are going to all clean up? Or are we going in just, you know, well, you know what, we can't afford the big name players because, you know, Darwin Núñez has been sort of cited by Liverpool, so he's off there, and we're not going to get any of the other big names, so we're going to have to go for these younger players, and we're just going to sort of go in the deep end. But yeah, to me, he's a cracking player. I would love to see him here, but under the right circumstances. And, you know, let's be honest here, we don't know how serious this injury is. It may be a tweak and he's come off like precautionary, and, you know, he's going to sort of spend a couple of weeks past the medical with flying colours and still end up here. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, totally agree on that. And probably no further. Best not to speculate, to be honest. Reaching out with him as well, Bobby, he's been likened to Thierry Henry and Mbappe as well. If he can fulfill to half of that potential, even a quarter of it, we could potentially have one hell of a player on our hands there, couldn't we?
Oh, absolutely. He's a quality kid. Like, I love him. I've been speaking about him for a few months now. Since we were linked with him in January, he's just got all the right movements. He's quite tall. I think he says 6'3". But the way he glides along the pitch with the ball at his feet and just knows where the space is to move into and everything. Yeah, he reminds me of, you got to say it, but you don't want to say he's going to be as good as, because there's not many that ever reach that level. But he does remind me of Thierry Henry in his movement and the way he does get into the box and glide past defenders and everything like that. So to me, it's frustrating for him to see a hamstring. I think he would have been signed, sealed, and delivered pretty soon after this stupid tournament was over. And we would have been rapt to have him. This little injury, we don't know how serious it is, but it's put some doubts. But as I said, I think in the offline, it really depends on what we're signing him for. If we're signing him to be our backup to Callum Wilson straight away, well, yeah, the hamstring's a bit of an issue, isn't it? Because we've already got one guy that can't get on the park. You don't want your top two strikers to be that. If we're signing him at 19 to be part of the future, which I would have thought is the way to go, well, I'd back us in to give us a year or two to get his hamstrings right and develop him, because he could be that player that's worth 100 million in a few years. So, yeah, it's a dicey one now, and it's sort of frustrating. But I think my opinion is I've watched him play all year in League One, and it's just too much quality to turn down for us, I think.
And his fee of 25 million plus bonuses, which I think are going to take around about the 30 million pound or euro mark, not quite sure. Do you think that's justified? Again, that's to both of you.
We will pay a premium always. It's just who we are. But I think there's rumours now it's a loan signing with an obligation to buy next year, and I think that's going to be, it's a high loan fee. So I think the fee goes from 25 million euros to 31 million euros for a loan fee. So the loan fee is 6 million euros or something of that, that regard. Is it justified? Yeah, yes. I think he's you look around Europe now and there's a lot of these unproven players that are getting, like you look at Núñez, who is a bit more proven than Ekitike, a bit older. He's looking like he's going for 80 million euros. So, yeah, I think he's worth that. And, he's certainly not a bargain, but he's not overpriced, I think.
Your thoughts on that one, Mark?
I think it's the going rate, isn't it? I don't think we're ever going to get a cheap player these days, especially at this level. You're going to have competition. I mean, you look at PSG's been interested in him. There's been a few other clubs been sniffing about. The potential's there, and as Bobby says, it's like Nunez is going for 80 odd million. He's 22. If you're signing a 19-year-old, you've got 3 years to stick his hamstrings together and get him sort of progressing along. It doesn't have to be like for the first team right here and right now. Hopefully, we're going to sign another more seasoned striker. And then, when he's 20, 21, that's where he's sort of starting to come back into the first team picture as our main striker. But, you're talking, I think if you have a deal in place where it's a loan deal with a get out clause, if he does break down constantly and we don't get any games out of him, then well, look, yep, thanks for that. We don't think he's going to be right for us, but have him sealed up where if he gets a niggle injury here and there, but plays 20 odd games for us off the bench even, does his job, then I'm happy to kind of get him in on that permanent signing. So I don't think it's over excessive in terms of the price, given his potential. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's Europe's top scoring teenager across the top 5 leagues, I believe, that's obviously going to add a few extra pounds to his transfer fee. And I think just the fact that the league he's playing in potentially is maybe drop that transfer fee down. It's not the most competitive league, but he could be one hell of a talent. Hopefully, he can patch up his injuries and we can get one of the best young talents in the world. And long may it continue for the next few years from. Fingers crossed. Moving on now. Again, another player that was linked way back in January. And this is a player that, according to Amanda Stabley, when she done an interview a good few weeks ago now, did want to come in January, but the clubs just couldn't come to an agreement. Now, it looks as though over the last 24, 36 hours or so, things may have just accelerated towards our favour a little bit. I think AC Milan, they may be pulling out due to funds or whatever, and we may have agreed a £29 million fee. Again, I think it's just the structure of the fee that needs to be done. This player, I know he gets you excited, Bobby. I know you've mentioned him since day one of him being mentioned to the tune. What's your thoughts on him? And is he potentially the next future captain of Newcastle if we can sign him? Big call.
It's a big call. I don't know if he's the next future captain, but I think he's the perfect person or the perfect player to have deputising with Dan Burn as a left-footed centre-back. I think Dan Burn's, 29, 30 now, and Sven's had a Champions League experience, and he's very composed. I think the only knock on him is he's not super quick, but he's very smart and gets to the right positions, nice size, everything like that. So yeah, he does. He's the one I've wanted since January. It's like a roller coaster ride, though, isn't it? He's coming, he's not coming. Milan's got him. Milan don't want him. Oh no, they do. He wants to play with Maldini. It's just up and down every day. Every 12 hours, there's something new that comes out that you're either depressed or you're ecstatic or what's going on. So I don't know what the true story is. I'm just going to leave it for now because it's obviously agent doing what he's doing, and there's rumours that he's actually waiting for Milan to be bought out so they can afford the fee that Newcastle are willing to pay. So who knows? But yeah, he'd definitely be a quality person to bring into the squad. And yeah, I think he'd be perfect to be next to Dan Burn to learn that left-sided centre-back position for sure.
Yeah, I think he's a man that would walk into the squad if he was to sign for us. And again, only 22. I know Eddie Howe mentioned that he needs to bring the average age of the squad down. But Mark, I'll ask you this one. Do you think there's a possibility he could go too young with some of these players? Maybe should get a bit more experience?
Look, I think there's players we're being linked with, and I think Botman's one of those where, yeah, he's young, but he's got experience. He's not got Premier League experience, but, he's not going to have Premier League experience until he actually gets signed by a Premier League club, so can't really hold that against him. Look, I think the club obviously covet the player. I think they want him here. I think the player probably does see us as an option. I can't fault the guy for having his head turned by the current Italian champions who offer him Champions League football. I think anybody saying that we should just drop our interest in him and move on elsewhere, it's like, look, we're not diving around the bargain bin anymore for players that nobody else wants. We're trying to sign players that are hot property in Europe. We don't have European football to offer. It's going to be a case of trying to sell the club and sell the project. I think Amanda Staveley sort of insinuated that they have sold the project to him and he was quite keen to join in January. AC Milan's now in the picture. Who knows whether or not, it's a case of the Italian press trying to save face if he does choose us over Milan, and it's like, oh, it's just money. It's not at all. Whether or not it is the player that is like sort of holding us up because he really wants to go to Milan and they can't afford to match the wages. Who knows? I don't think you can judge a player like this on the fact that he's only 22. I think he is a good player for that age. He's only going to get better. There is definitely a case that we do still need to have experience, but I think we've got that in the squad already. And I think it is literally now just a case of getting in those players for the next generation of players for Newcastle United. And that has to be younger players. We can't really go out and match toe-to-toe with some of the big spenders in Europe for the seasoned pros, and nor do we really want to. We want to build a sustainable squad, a sustainable model, with young players that'll be here for a long while, and we don't have to worry about then replacing them in 2 or 3 seasons because they're actually old when we sign them. So, I'm happy to go for younger players like this that do have experience, that do have European experience in major competitions, and do sort of offer us a huge amount of talent that we can inject into the squad.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. Is he a Dutch national player yet? Is he made a
Not yet.
Dutch? No. I'd imagine so. I mean, when you think of the talent the Dutch national team have got, it's understandable why he hasn't broken through yet. But you'd think it's only going to be a matter of time for him, and when he does and he gets on that world stage and he can show what he is capable of doing. I've only ever seen his highlight reels, to be honest, and he has looked a solid outfit from when I have seen him play. And if we can get his signature and we can get him on a long-term contract, then the sky's the limit for what he could achieve potentially in domestic and world football. It'd be nice to see.
I will make this point though. I've seen a lot of people criticize him for his lack of pace, and it is a concern for the Premier League, but realistically speaking, if you've got a good amount of anticipation and you can read the game, you don't need that pace. I think a lot of players in the Premier League use pace to cover up a multitude of sins, and it sort of masks their mistakes or it masks their inability to read the game because they've got the pace to be able to catch up to play and make up for it. So a lack of pace, yeah, okay, it's an issue if he's having to recover. But if he can read the game properly and he can make those anticipations of where he needs to be and what's going to happen and read the game properly, then maybe he doesn't need that. And long term, you've got to be thinking that longevity in a player who doesn't rely on pace is going to be much, much better than somebody who, if they get a bad injury and lose that sort of extra yard of pace, they're going to really suffer with their game because they haven't got anything else to back that up. So, yeah, there's definitely 2 ways of looking at that pace issue, and I don't think it's going to be a problem for him if you look at some of his highlight reels.
Didn't look out of place in any of the Champions League games that he played. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you're 100% right. If as a defender you can be a very smart defender and have unbelievable reading of the play and know what's happening 2 steps in front, and that counters all for pace. So, yeah, I got no issue. That's his only knock, but I don't think it is a huge knock, to be honest. I think it's just people nitpicking some negativity out of him, but I think he's a wonderful player and will be a Dutch international for sure. So if we can get him now, and it's very good for us.
Yeah, could be another one that just helps raise the profile of the club. If we can get his signature. I mean, there'd be no shame losing him to AC Milan. They are a cracking team. Their profile is sky high compared to ours in comparison. But, if we do get him, it'd be one hell of a capture in a long one that we've been trying to get for a good few months now. This next player, a bit more interesting on this one because Dean Henderson of Man United. Now, according to internet rumours and all the tabloids, back at the end of January, we were looking to do maybe a swap deal with Dubravka, but that was hushed by Eddie Howe pretty much straight away, I believe. In the transfer fee that Man United have apparently quoted on this one for 50 million quid, I think whatever they've been smoking was the same stuff that they had when they wanted us to take what's his face on loan, because that fee is just absolutely batshit for someone who's only made 49 Premier League appearances, and he is only 25, but he's certainly not worth 25 million. Now I've read rumours that it's going to be a 15 million pound fee, or then it's going to be a loan to buy fee. It's a bit backwards on this one. But my first question is to you, Mark, is do we need a new keeper now? Or is Dubravka good enough for at least another year?
Oh, look, I'm a big Dubravka fan. I think he's saved us more points than enough over the last couple of seasons. I think he's a great shot stopper. I don't think he's great with the ball at his feet, and I think that's the big concern for Eddie Howe. So I think he wants a keeper that's going to be able to play the ball. Having said that, we need competition. We've got no backup for Dubravka, especially if Woodman goes. Darlow's apparently on the verge of maybe going to Borough as well, or somewhere in the Championship. I've seen a couple of rumours around there today, and we could do with that extra competition. It's like if Dubravka gets injured, we need another keeper to step in, or we need somebody to kind of come in and really push Dubravka and maybe take that number one spot off him. I think the interesting thing was that this deal was being rumored to be kind of almost a done deal, and then Dan Ashworth came in and looks to have scuppered it pretty quickly. I don't think he sees value for money in it, and rightly so at those prices that Man United are trying to rip us off with. Clearly, they are very much in the camp of we're not doing you any favors because you're about to take out all of our sort of success offers with all of your oil money, and I think it's definitely they're looking to try and cash in on that. But we don't have to sign these players if they're going to price them out of the moves. So for me, yes, we need a new keeper. I think we need that competition, but I don't know if Dean Henderson's that player.
Would you agree with that, Bobby?
Yeah, 100%. I think I would have liked Dean Henderson. I really rate him, and when it was looking like he was going to sign, I thought that was good. And then you see the fee, and it's astronomical, but it's Manchester United. They don't know how to do business at all. So they've cost themselves a person that wants to get out and get first team opportunities, and so be it. And I think, as Mark said, Dan Ashworth's come in and he won't suffer fools. He won't overpay. He won't be treated like a mug. So there's a lot of players out there who can come in. Going back on Mark's point, I 100% agree that we need a keeper to challenge Dubravka. And we need someone who can play the ball at his feet. I think they're the two things we need. I don't trust Darlow or Freddie Woodman or Gillespie to come in if Dubravka gets injured. So I think a keeper is high on the list for me. And I think I've been beating that drum for a while now, Craig, on a few of our pods that, for me, a keeper is a vital position to get someone in. And who that is, I don't know. I've heard the rumour now that we're going for Sanchez from Brighton. That might just be a leak because we've stolen everyone else from Brighton. But there's a lot of players that I think will fit the mould. So, let's see where it goes.
And one of his attributes that I've listed there is his passing. Mark, you brought it up. Dubravka's distribution isn't the best, and that is something Eddie Howe wants to play out from the back, which is something we've seen already. And I suppose that has to start with a keeper, and a keeper at the age of 25, you could potentially get 10 years out of him. So if we do sign him for even, say, 25 million, that could possibly be seen as great value if you can have him for that long.
Oh, look, I think Dean Henderson's an absolutely fantastic keeper. Don't get me wrong. I just question the amount of money that's being thrown around as a fee. If we can get him for the right price, then yeah, I'm all over that, and I'll be really happy if we do get him. I just think there's better value out there, and I think Dan Ashworth will certainly be aware of what players are worth, and despite the oil tax that we will have to pay inevitably on every player that we go for these days, I think there will be limits. And I think Dan Ashworth, as Bobby said, he's not going to suffer fools. If it gets out of hand, he's going to basically can that deal. There's other options out there. It's like Sven Botman. If we miss out on him because he goes to AC Milan, then so be it. Move on to the next one. There's plenty of players out there. We're starting at the top now. We're not waiting until everyone else has done business and then sort of rummaging around the bargain bin like we did under Ashley. So, it's not the end of the world if we miss out on our first choice, because we're actually going for them now, as opposed to, waiting around and seeing what happens.
Yeah, it's again another interesting one. We'll see if anything further develops over the coming days, weeks, and months. Again, the transfer window runs for 83 days, starting from today. So there's an absolute ball ache of a time for it to finish, and plenty of developments to happen during that time frame. This next player, Bobby, I actually asked you about this player because I'd never heard of him, to be honest. And as soon as his name was mentioned, I'd imagine your eyes lit up like you'd just won the lotto or something like that. And that player is Musa Diaby. Not a big follower of the Bundesliga. I know you are, because you studied Joe Linton a lot. Your thoughts on this player and what he can bring to the team if we do get him?
Well, Mark was just talking about starting at the top. I don't think there's anyone we'd want more than this bloke. He's someone that I would have thought that a Liverpool or a Man City or that sort of caliber club would be looking at. He's a wonderful player. He's got everything you want in a player: his pace, his power, how direct he is. He can play as an inverted winger. He scores goals. Just a complete wide forward, you'd say, but could probably play a false nine as well. Has done it in a very good league this season. I think if we can, I think I mentioned Craig weeks ago that I just can't see us being in the ballpark, and then it's sort of grown and grown that we are a chance. So this guy is the real deal. He would play on the opposite wing to ASM, and we'd just be sitting back going, how good's this, to be honest, if we were able to get him in. So, I still can't see it. It's just my mind won't tick. I think we've been so burnt by the Ashley era for so long, and then all of a sudden we've got this guy who I rate extremely highly as a possible option. I can't fathom it, to be honest. But wonderful player, and let's hope we can get him. But I do have my doubts.
To contribute 25 goals in 32 games, out scoring 13 and assisting 12, is one hell of a record in any league from any player. But for a 22-year-old in what is quite a demanding league, the Bundesliga, what would you make of his signing, Mark? And do you think he'd have an instant impact like Bobby reckons?
Yeah, I think he's that player that you just would be magic if it happens. I'm like Bobby. I can't. I think I've still got PTSD from Ashley era. I just can't let myself believe that we're going to be signing these like sort of potential world class players. Yes, he's 22, but he's performing. He's doing really well. He would make an immediate impact. He adds that extra dimension to Newcastle if we got him to play on the right-hand side, because, immediately he drags defenders off St. Maximin. And that's the one thing that I've always said is through all of the frustrations with Maxi is I want to judge him when he's not got 2 or 3 defenders stuck on him every time he gets the ball, because he's the only outlet for us. If he's not the main man and he's not getting covered every time he gets the ball, because you've got Diaby on the other wing and they can't afford to let him loose either, it creates space for all of the players. So hopefully that creates a much more fluid forward line for us. I think he would be absolutely fantastic for us if we could get him. He's a left-footed player playing on the right, so he can cut in and shoot. him and Maxi can swap over and have more traditional wing roles where they're going to cross the ball in for players. It opens up so much sort of potential for moving forward with our forward line. It would be really exciting. I will believe it when it happens, unfortunately, especially with the fees that are being quoted for him in the 50-odd million mark. I think it's it's a lot of money for a 22-year-old. And, I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if he will come to us. I think he'll be probably, maybe looking for a Champions League club. And as I said, we can't offer that yet. Maybe if we get Botman in, that's the statement signing we need to start to get all of these other players to sort of start to take notice, going, oh yeah, no, that they're actually doing pretty well. We want to get in on that ground level now as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the £50+ million fee. It still sounds crazy, the fact that we're linked to a player of that value. It still does. I'm with you both on the PTSD from the Ashley era. It's absolutely bonkers. But his chairman, sporting director, we don't want to say, did actually come out a few weeks ago, just as the news broke that we were interested in him, that they don't really want to sell him, but if the fee was good enough, we will. So to me, that's almost a come and get him type approach sort of thing. And we are one of the few clubs in world football that could afford him and pay him a handsome wage as well. He's not paid that well, apparently, at Bayern Munich, so we could give him an increase in salary, and it could be a decent one for him as well. But structuring the deal, 22-year-old, I mean, if we can get him on a 5-year plan, spread that across over a 5-year, the 55 million over a 5-year deal, that could be one hell of an investment moving forward. And like you say, him and Maxi on the wings be devastating, I'd imagine. And it'd be so good to see. It'd be like Arsenal every week, wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely superb. And he's a player that does get me excited. Again, just watch his highlight reel, and again, just how good Bobby talks about him. And Mark, you've obviously got lots of singing his praise and everything as well. So he's a player that I would love to see get signed for us. But will it happen? I'm probably going to say no on that one. Would you both be on the side of that one?
It's a long shot.
Yeah, I just can't see. I can't see us spending that much when we've got so many other players that we need position wise. But never say never. If the owners are ambitious enough for this window and they want us to push on, and they've got the opportunity to sign him, and he's willing to come, then stranger things have happened. We got Bruno.
A front three of Maxi, Wilson, and Diaby. If Wilson can stay fit, that will terrorise.
That's got some goals written all over it.
That will terrorise defences in the Premier League. So, would I pay 50 million euros for Diaby? Absolutely. I think he's worth that now. I think he's definitely worth it. He's 22, so he's still not at his peak. You're right, Craig, that wonderful word, amortisation of the deal, to structure it for 5 years becomes doable. So, look, I'm not getting my hopes up, but I am in a way. I'd love to get him. He'd be a cracking signing for us and put us in the next level by far.
You talked about the front three, put my teeth in, front three of Maxi, Wilson and Diaby. Now, this next one I'm going to bring up here, how much does this fella excite you? Lucas Paqueta. Now, add him to the mix of that front three, and then you got one hell of an attacking outlet on there. Now, one question I want to ask you on this one, Mark, is do you think we're linked with him purely because he's Bruno's mate and his lazy journalism, or we generally do have an interest in him?
Oh, definitely. I think there's that sort of romance of the fact that he is Bruno's mate and they're always together, and he's been over to see us a few times. He's been over to sort of chat to Bruno, and he had his Newcastle top on in the backyard. It is that story that you want to kind of read about and you want to really follow through. Having said that, he's a cracking player as well. And by all accounts, we put a bid in for him back in January. That was turned down, and so we ended up getting Bruno instead. Now, how much of that is we got Bruno to get paqueta? I think his name. I've seen him pronounce paqueta and paqueta, and I'm going to go for paqueta because that was what all the South American commentators were saying. But anyway, yeah, Lucas looks like an absolute cracking player. another Brazil international, plays more regularly than Bruno. And you look at some of his highlight reel stuff, and it's just like it's that proper Brazilian magic where he's like flicking things over people's heads, and doing these little sort of funky traps of the ball and nutmegging players. But he works his ass off as well, and he tracks back, and he's really sort of tough in the tackle, and he wins the ball back, and he will put the effort in. So if you're looking at like him, Bruno, and Joe Linton as a midfield three, that's pretty impressive, and I think that's got to get every Newcastle fan excited. So yeah, I would very much like for us to get this guy, not just because of Bruno. I think that adds a little bit icing on the cake, but just as a general player himself, I think he's absolutely cracking.
So, Bobby, if we were to sign Paqueta, would that get you harder than Chinese algebra, you reckon?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, definitely would. Yeah, God, Craig. Yeah, he's a wonderful player. Again, you've been hearing it for a while that he wants to come and we want him, and I just think they were quoted something ridiculous, like £60 million or something at that level. And again, we're not going to be taken for as mugs. I think if they drop the price, and now I think there's rumours going out that Lyon have listed a few players that they need to sell, and he's one of them. So I see this maybe at the end of the window, that if the price comes down enough, that gets us interested, and we can structure the deal to bring him in. Because, yeah, I mean, the players we're getting, I don't think there's a bad player we're being linked to, is there? I think anyone that we're being linked to now is 10 times the quality, 20 times the quality to what we've seen in the past. So, yeah, I mean, when I watched a lot of Bruno, I watched a lot of him, and even in the national side, they just have this really innate understanding of where each other are on the pitch, and they work together so well. So to see that in the black and white at St James's Park would be kind of special.
Yeah, the Samba boys on Tyneside have a Brazilian midfield three. That would be one hell of a pairing, wouldn't it? And again, go on, Bobby.
Sorry, Craig. You know what it is these South American players, they do what Mark says. They work hard. They track back. They tackle. They fight for a cause. They're not just showboaters, and we've seen that with Jolinton and Bruno as well, and this guy was the same. So having that on the pitch at St James's Park with the crowd behind, because we know that the crowd at St James love that as well as they love the flair.
Yep.
It just adds to the atmosphere.
It really would. And again, if that is true that we did go for Paqueta first, Mark, and we were rejected and ended up with Bruno, and that's one hell of a second offer, isn't it? And if your first offer gets rejected and you end up with a player of Bruno's quality, I mean, Jesus, how good is this guy? And 60 million is the apparent rumoured fee. There is a release clause apparently, but it's one of those stupid amounts like 100 million or whatever it is, which no club's ever going to pay that amount for him. If we do end up signing him, do you think it'd be a case of getting him or Diaby, or do you think there could be a chance, albeit a ridiculously slim one, that we get both of them?
If you listen to Luke Edwards, like, we're probably overspending as it is. So I don't know. I think, both players, absolutely class players. I don't think that we will spend like 100 million on two players, unless there's a lot of amortization going on that we don't really know about, and they've got a little bit of clever accounting behind the scenes. I just don't see us having spent that much money, but it's the transfer window is a couple of hours old. There's plenty of time left to kind of get these deals up and running. I'm really surprised that there's not as much sort of clamour for Diaby and Paqueta from other clubs. Like, we've seen Botman have a few suitors. We've had this massive rush of clubs wanting Nunez. We've, a lot of these other players. And even Target. I mean, Fulham were after him, and a few other clubs were after him. There's been very little on these on Diaby and Paqueta. I was like, and I don't get it, because they're both absolutely class players, and I would have thought that there would have been a lot of other clubs in for them. Now, whether or not it is just behind the scenes, whether or not there's just no chance that they're actually either of them are going to be sold, I don't know. But you know, as you said, the talk from the Lyon chairman seems to suggest that they're wanting to sell him. So you know, maybe we can get a good deal for him, and then you know, stagger those payments. We're used to Ashley wanting everything paid up front, so we're paying like you know, we're not going to pay 50 million straight up front because that's going to like nuke our financial fair play. But as we've seen in the podcast the other day about all the financial fair play stuff, if we amortize these players over the course of a contract, you know, we can do some damage, and you know, I think the owners are ambitious enough to try and pull a few of these off. So you know, watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every day is going to bring up a new story, and again, we've got weeks and months of it. This is just the
I'm
start of the
exhausted
roller
already.
coaster. It really, yeah. It's like I say, if we thought January was a roller coaster, then God knows what this is going to be like. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. One question: do you think they'll accept Jeff Hendrick as a part exchange?
Maybe that's
tea lady.
Maybe that's all.
I think if we put Jeff Hendrick in, it'll be like 70 million that we'd have to pay.
But did speaking of Jeff Hendrick, did you see he's willing to come back to training and fighting for his place? Apparently, good look at that.
He'll make a very good witch's hat.
Yeah. You really will.
Ouch.
But we're going to move on to the last player now. Now, this again is a player I know absolutely nothing about. And Bobby is being the encyclopedia of football as he is. He's going to give her a bit more information on this guy. But again, he's another one of the top youngsters in world football, and that is Luka Sukic, if I pronounce that correctly. 19-year-old Croatian midfielder who you likened before we came on air to Mikel Mourinho.
Yeah, I couldn't put my finger. Now, to be fair, I don't watch the Austrian league, so I haven't seen his games much. I've been blessed that I grew up. A lot of my friendship base is Croatian. I played junior football and everything around Melbourne Knights. So if I hear a good young Croatian player, I'll hear it from them. And this is what I have with Luka. And I was lucky enough to watch his first Croatian cap because one of my mate's cousins was in the squad as well. So we all got down to the club and we watched it together. So looking at him, he's a left-footed centre midfielder, really composed, you know, finds space, great passer, but he's got that hard edge to him as well where he can put in a tackle. So very good centre midfielder, you know, box-to-box type player. Nice size about him as well. So he's a taller type player that the Croatian fans, you know, that I know will say he's their next Luka Modric in terms of that centre midfielder type. I think he's a little bit different to Luka. I don't think he's as creative, but he's very composed as well. So 19, definitely one for the future. But the thing I like about it is I like these Balkan players. I like these Croatians. I like these nationalities that they always come and they do you well. They play really well. And we're looking outside the square a little bit. So, yeah, from what I've seen, this guy and the reports from what I've seen, from what I've heard from my mates, yeah, he'd definitely be one to look at. And, yeah, I just his style being that left-footed centre midfielder, I liken him to and being a bit taller is a Mikel Mourinho. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see.
The rumoured fee is around, 19-20 million pounds. If that is the case and he is as good as he's claimed to be, then that could be, again, another absolute bargain. Whether we'd pay over the top to begin with, but again, if he turns out to be the superstar he looks as though he could be, then bargain of the century, and we could have one hell of a squad on our hands in the next 3, 4, 5 years if all these youngsters do turn out to be as good as you want them to be. There's one other, go on, Mark.
I think it's like that's something that I've seen a lot of people on social media criticize. Oh, well, where are we going to play these players? It's like we're not talking about a first 11 anymore because that's all we need to kind of scrape survival as long as they stay fit enough to get enough games under them. Which was kind of what we did under Ashley. Was, you know, we'll get 11 players that if they're all fit, then we'll win enough games and we'll stay up. We want squad depth now. We want to be able to have those impact subs on the bench. We want to be able to rotate players so we can make those cup runs. We can have more games, and we can sort of, keep that level of intensity up for the whole season. And, at some stage, hopefully, we end up in Europe. And then we've got some extra games in there as well to cover. So, it is about building that squad mentality up. But having all these young players coming through, and I think I mentioned this on our group chat the other day, when it's like, well, look, you could go out and you can spend 120 million on one player, and that's it. That's your budget gone. Or like, you spent a good portion of your budget, that transfer window, on one single player. We can buy, if you can buy 3, 30, 40 million pound players that are all younger, develop them up to be that 100, 120 million pound player. You can sell one of them. You still got 2 left at world-class potential, and use that money to reinvest in back in getting some more younger players, and have this massive conveyor belt constantly coming through. It's a recipe for success. It's a recipe for sustained success. And I think that's actually a really good move that the owners are clearly trying to build this model of having these younger players injected into the club, develop them, and actually work up this long-term successful strategy for the club, rather than just come in and, do what Everton did and throw money at a problem and not really have a plan of attack and a long-term goal for what's happening. So, yeah, I'm actually like really impressed that we're being linked to all these young players. How many of them come off, we don't know, but it is good to see.
Yeah, could have put it better myself. And there's one other player at the club which, similar ilk, he had a fantastic second half of the season on loan down at Bristol. Elliot Anderson. He's obviously one of our players now. He hasn't cost us a penny, but he could be a player which could fold into the same team as the likes of Ekitike, Sukic if we sign him, Botman if he comes on board as well. The future, if we can get them, does look ridiculously bright for our team right now.
Yeah,
get them Geordie Maradona into the squad.
Hey.
Yeah, I think it's good, and it's exciting as well, because these guys, you see them develop from their 19-year-old. I think the good thing about Luka is that he's capped for his national team, and it's not a national team that's an easy one to get into either. So that's a real telltale sign that he's a quality player. So yeah, echo Mark's thoughts. These young kids, just because they're young doesn't mean they're no good or they can't play. We develop them all as one, and yeah, it's really exciting. And I think part of that is the squad age. We've got the experience now. So if we can have these young kids come through and develop in the next 2 years with these older guys, and then take over when they're 20, 21, 22, all the more better for us, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint that we're trying to achieve here. We know exactly where we are right now in terms of a club and where we want to be. And we can't get to where we want to be without laying the foundations first. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And hopefully it pays off big time. Just going to that, brings all back on the screen now. So if those players that years have seen that we are all linked with, you have to pick one to sign. Who are you going with, Mark? You can only sign one, which you're getting.
Probably Diaby, and that's just because I think we're desperate for someone on that right wing. I think we've got cover in every other position. We want to upgrade those other positions, but we need somebody on that right wing to create and score goals. And I think Diaby is the answer to all of our problems on that wing. So yeah, I'm going to go for him. But I'm being greedy because I want others as well.
Yeah, obviously. And Bobby, for you, same question?
Diaby, yeah, easy one for me. He's the highest quality player there. He'd come in and be one of our better players, be a goal threat. I think our defence is pretty solid, and we've got the numbers if we had to forego a Botman. But to get a Diaby puts us in a different level.
Absolutely. I mean, he's in the French national squad. In that French national squad, they've effectively got 2 national squads. They've got that great depth in field. It's absolutely insane how good they've been. He'll go to the World Cup. That I'm pretty much sure of. My choice would be Diaby as well, but I wouldn't say no to Paqueta. Absolutely not. If given the option, either would be absolutely superb and would elevate us to a level which we haven't had for a while.
Craig, I'm not saying no to I'm not saying no to any of those players.
But yeah, they're all going to improve. You know, they will all improve the squad. Maybe Ekitike with his hamstrings, but again, we don't know the extent of his latest injury. It could be absolutely nothing. It could be out for weeks, months. Hopefully, it's just a few days, and we can get that signature on paper and get our second official signing of the window. But that brings the opening of the transfer window pod to a close. Thanks to Mark, thanks to Bobby for joining me today.
That's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Craig. Brilliant as always.
Thank you. And for everybody that is out there, thanks for watching. If you like what we do, please subscribe to the channel. We are this far away from getting the 500 subscribers. We would absolutely love to smash that over the next few days and over this summer. And we also on Twitter, you can follow us at TuneUnderPod. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. Again, to search TuneUnderPod. And we've got a website at tuneunderpod.com. If you like what we do, again, please give a like, give a comment, but best of all, subscribe. We would love to see you all on future pods when we do a live one. The interaction is one of our favorite things to do. So thank you very much for watching. Have a good night, and let's hope for some fantastic signings in the next few weeks. Cheers, lads.
See you guys.